Hello.
Hi, Jenna. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm we were supposed to do an interview like years ago, but it never happened with the world shutting down.
Oh, yeah, pre-COVID. Yeah. God, that was a weird time, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I don't even know how to comprehend that still.
I know it's one of the main reasons why it took so long for this record to come out. Because yeah, it's been 3 years. I mean, it's hard to believe how fast time has gone, but certainly glad to be looking at that in the rearview mirror for sure.
Yeah, I'm so glad there are concerts now.
Oh, I know. Going back on tour was so much fun. We just did a North American tour with Cynic,
Oh
with
yeah.
Atheist. That was so damn fun, and it just felt so good to be back. And yeah, we're back in action.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you are about to release I guess it's tomorrow you're releasing it Outside the Spiral with Till the Dirt, which the album sounds so awesome, by the way.
Thank you. Really, you like it? That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. I love like the black metal undertones it has.
It's got a lot of weird vibes that aren't typically my headspace, and it's what's been really interesting to hear feedback from everybody in the weeks leading up to the release tomorrow. And because I mean, I can't tell you how much I don't really listen to, if at all, listen to black metal, but somehow that came out, and I think I don't know how, but it's always fun to make a big stew of music with a lot of different seasonings.
Yeah, it's definitely like with the song Insist and Demand, like that's the song that I really heard the black metal side. Like not only with your voice, but your voice has always like kind of had that black
Well,
metal
see,
to it.
what's interesting is that so because I've been around for so long, late '80s. I've always had this. I've always been from the school of Millet from Creator and Schmier from Destruction, and so when I was going to be singing, I was like, well, I'll never be able to do that super low shit. Can I say shit? Are we on that kind of radio station?
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
fucking care about
Okay,
censorship
cool.
on damn near false.
I didn't know what kind of radio we were on, terrestrial radio or not. So yeah, so I've always had that higher pitch foot now. So when Atheist went away and between 93 and the early 2000s, black metal really became this huge thing, and it was synonymous with that higher, witchier kind of vocal tone. So I think inadvertently, I kind of predate black metal a little bit, other than Venom, you know what I mean, which is I guess the beginning of black metal. I guess are the roots of it. I mean, I really don't know, but I think that's probably what lends people that vibe of black metal, is that higher, witchier kind of vocal. But also John Longstreth plays on that song, and from Origin, and so the way he plays drums and coupled with the groove of that song, it's definitely dark.
Yeah, like yeah, you know what? Come to think of it, like with the drums in it, yeah, those are definitely very black metal and death metal too. Like that song's amazing. Like Invitation is amazing too. Like
I love that song. I wanted that to be the single, to be honest with you, and it's so timely right now too. I could just see that song being sort of synonymous with all the shit that we are going through politically and everything. And I'm typically not like one of those political guys, but the shit that was happening during COVID was so angering. I mean, it was making me so mad the way things were being dealt with, and people were just it was frustrating. So that song to me, when I listen to it, just sums it all up. How angry and pissed off I was about, just being secluded and the way our government was dealing with it. And yeah, it was just a really. It's interesting how your the way you live your life and the way that life lives to you reflects in your music, and paintings and stuff like that. It's really I think art is this like mirror, a reflection of what's happening around you. And so that is a very angry song, but I love it.
yeah. Yeah, so like with it being so angry, like with the personality of the song, like did the song demand to have like anything in it, like as you were writing it, did something just like speak to you and you just had to like put it
It
in?
does. It doesn't really kind of work that way with me. It's this spontaneous combustion of music. Like each one of these songs were written basically in a night. You know, they were I've always liked to try to capture a moment in a song. I hate to spend longer than a day or two on a song. Now, I mean, at the core of the song, I may go back and like spruce it up and doll it up a little bit, but essentially, I really love to capture moments. And so each one of these songs, I wrote 25 songs for this album in a 6 week period. And so I have a lot of extra songs, you know what I mean, in addition that are behind this album. So I'm excited because I was really trying to, I didn't know, you know, I don't think I'll ever have to go through a pandemic again or ever be able to get into that headspace again. So I really wanted to write as much as I could to capture the honesty and the integrity of where I was coming from musically. And because it was so outside of my normal fare, you know, and I could recognize that. So short of that, I really just sit down every night and have a couple drinks and just start playing. And so obviously with that shit going on the television and going on in social media and the way everything was happening, I think it inadvertently, you know, influenced me to just to write angrily. But I never know what I'm gonna write sitting down. You know, I'm kind of a spectator to it. And then I kind of go the next day, I'll go and listen to it and just be like, whoa, you know, that's dark. I don't know where I was last night at 2 a.m, but I apparently was very angry. So, but it was, I mean, I can't tell you how third person it really is for me, songwriting. It just feels like I just let it come out and then I kind of view it later myself, just almost like a listener. And it's kind of always been that way for me. I mean, we wrote the third Atheist record very quickly like that as well. You know, where the song Mineral from the third Atheist album was when we recorded that song, it was less than 24 hours old. And so most people, you know, write a song, kind of live with it, play it out, you know, live, you know, have a producer fuck with it, you know, good. I don't like doing that. I like to just really, I love spontaneous combustion musically, and that's this record. So there's all kinds of, I mean, I so much so, Jenna, that I, you know, lyrically, I'm having a hard time remembering the lyrics because it's so it's almost like listening to someone else's song. Like Atheist, like you could wake me up at 4 a.m. and those lyrics are like woven into my soul. Like as soon as I hear the music, I automatically know the lyrics. It's like muscle memory. But this happens so quickly and so outside of my box that I almost have to learn the songs almost like a person who didn't write them. So it's really cool. I don't know. It's just different.
That's an interesting perspective. I've
Yeah.
never heard that before. So dare I say, like, so I'm also a fan of your one of your older bands, Neurotica.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah, that like I loved the geez, why am I blanking out? Like the self-titled album or the yeah,
Oh, the
self
Blue album, the Blue
yeah,
one.
yeah, the one so I heard it from the WWF Forcible Entry. I That's why I bought the album.
Well, I'm grateful because you know that song that's on that album got fucked up by the guy who Jim Johnson is the guy who was the producer of that album, and he's the guy that made all the theme music for Vince McMahon. And he took one of the guitar tracks out and put a keyboard in that song, and we were so fucking mad about it. And he just took it upon himself to do that and put it on the Forcible Entry CD. So you know, if you listen to the album version of Ride of Your Life, which I think is the song, and it's really different. It's much heavier, you know, our actual version. So it's funny that you say that. But I mean, yeah, that was man, that was a good run. That was a good band. You know, I mean, I really that was my heart and soul as well for a number of years. And the cool thing about Till the Dirt is it's kind of a marriage of of my two my two relationships musically. You
Yeah,
know.
that's I hear that because like with the cleaner
Yeah.
vocals and then like the harsh, the atheist style vocals, it's really cool to hear that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think that automatically sort of was one of the things that sort of made me get excited about it because I was like, wow, I could because I would never try to put that kind of you know, and my clean vocals, to be clear for people who haven't heard it, are not typical clean vocals. They're the clean vocals from a guy that smoked for 35 years and screamed his face off for the same amount of time. So my clean vocals, while melodic, aren't pristine and clean like your typical clean vocal. So it's a little closer to like a COC Pepper Keenan kind of a clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's melodic, and it's nice to, I mean, I just found it really interesting to put those kinds of vocals over the top of like really fast, brutal, extreme metal. It just sounded so fucking weird to me. That was the one of the first hooks of it all. For me to get really, really excited about making more songs while I was in that headspace. So I just feel lucky now that I have this open canvas that I can just do anything I want now, musically, within the bounds of both of those bands.
Yeah, and with the opening track, starring role, like how do you feel like that the story of that kind of introduces people to the rest of the album?
Yeah, so it's looking back on it, like even lyrically, I tend to kind of learn what it was I was trying to say at the time. I learned later, kind of, or I kind of figure it out. And starring role is just about dreams, about if you've ever had dreams where everything was going really amazing and in the dream and it's incredible, and then you wake up and you're like, fuck, you know. That was so good, man. It was so great. That's the way everything needed to be. It was like playing, it was like a starring role in a film. And so that's kind of where that was coming from lyrically. But I love that song. I really wanted to start the album with that song just ripping, like so many songs like these days everybody starts off with this big long dramatic cinematic intro and everybody tries to be so heavy and usually it takes 2 minutes to get to the damn song. I was like, man, I just want to go pow and just start the album right out of the gate so people know that we're not fucking around.
Okay, yeah, I hear that. Then you close the album with Bring On the Gods, which is pretty heavy too.
What's that?
Then you close the album with like a super super heavy song too, like the Bring On the Gods, and it's like I
So that was the second song. So Outside the Spiral was the first song I wrote, and Bring on the Gods was the second. And those two songs are the ones that I sort of sent around to my friends in bands, to kind of try to get a feel for whether it meant anything or not, whether it was good. And because I knew it was different, but I didn't know that, I figured I could get some really honest opinions from my colleagues, guys that I know will tell me the truth. And so that's kind of those were the first two songs that people heard and they were like, yeah, I don't know what this is, man, but this is definitely different, dude. Keep doing it. And so I just kept writing. It's inspired by other people's encouragement.
oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to get the attaboys from your homies, and
Yeah.
and it's important. And some people pretend like they don't give a shit what other people think, but I do. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make good art, man. You know what I mean? And I have a thick skin. I don't mind it when people go, "Oh, sorry, Kelly, that shit's out of gas." You know what I mean? I go, "Oh, okay. Oh, fuck it. I'll write some more." You know what I mean? I'll write some other shit. I've never been short on things to say. You know what I mean? Musically. So I've never taken it personally when people go, I don't know, dude. But as soon as I sent this out I have a funny story that I love to tell because a writer named Gunnar Sauerman, who also worked at Season of Mist for a number of years, he was our publicist when we did Jupiter in 2010, and he's a big black metal guy, like just he's the blackest of all black metal guys, and I think he lives in Sweden, or maybe he might be in Germany now. I'm not sure, but he's just he just bleeds black. And when we were doing our press, he told me, he was like, Kelly, I'll let you know, I'll be your publicist for this whole press junket for the album. He goes, but I am not a fan. And I was like, awesome, man. Fucking, I love you already. You know what I mean? Because I don't, you know what I mean? I love people that are brutally honest. It's my favorite thing, you know? And he's like, yeah, I don't get technical metal. And I was like, cool, man, no worries. And that always stayed with me in my head. And so when I started making these music, I was like, well, this guy will definitely tell me, you know, whether this shit is good or not. And he was so excited about it. You know, his return message after I sent him the first two songs was just, he also heard the black metal in it, and he was like, wow, you know, this is just, you know, I've never heard black metal mixed with Seattle fucking stoner. Like, it was just this weird um um combination of styles that he felt was like really interesting. And so that was exciting for me as well, because I just knew he had no problem telling me, this shit's lame. So those kinds of things really just, you know, fueled my process. And it was a lot of fun. And, you know, there was nothing else to do at that time. You remember COVID was just so stifling for everybody. We didn't know, you know, what to do with ourselves. Couldn't really go anywhere. And I was really concerned about going out in public, because I, again, have smoked for a long time, and I lost like 6 friends during the COVID thing, people that were much healthier than me. Um, died of respiratory issues. And I was like, fuck, man, if I catch this, I make it out of it, you know? And that feeling was something that really resonated with me while I was writing this music. And I know it sounds kind of morbid, but I mean, I just, you know, I mean, I have a at the time he was only 3 years old. I have a little boy who was 3, and I was just, you know, so the second to last song on the record is called Watch You Grow Old, which is basically just about like, man, I hope I make it through this. You know, I want to watch my little boy grow up, you know. And so that's a real personal thing that I lyrically have ever kind of dived into with Atheist at all. So
Mm.
so not only was this musically a stretch outside of my normal place, I, you know, lyrically was able to find a way to be personal without it being cheesy. Because there's nothing worse than somebody writing a whole record full of, oh, you know, my girl broke up with me, and, you know, life is so tough, and it's just like all these cliche song sort of explanations and stuff, you know. But you know, I mean, not a lot of people can understand, like, being, you know, I'm 55 years old and I have a 6-year-old son. So the idea of getting canceled out by a fucking virus, you know, I mean, maybe I live another 20 years, you know, the average life expectancy or whatever, and I get to watch my kid grow up, but not when some fucking virus comes along and takes you out at, you know, whatever, 52 I was then. You know what I mean? It's just, it makes you think about things. And that's something that isn't typical. You know, the average 30-year-old person will never think about anything like that. So I found it comfortable for me to be able to write about in this band, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So when you first, you know, created Atheist, like how was that, I guess, that internal fire that you had, how was that like, and how is it like for like when you first started forming from the dirt?
Um, so, you know, Atheist was very, you know, I was a kid, 16 years old, just learning how to play. And I was with my best friends who were also learning how to play. So it was just an entirely different sitcom, you know, just a whole different set of rules. And you know, we were really into a lot of different kinds of music, but we really, you know, had a common denominator of loving, you know, fast and heavy. You know, back then it was so exciting to discover bands that it was like a secret club. You know what I mean? Like, everybody else was listening to Motley Crue and Dokken and fucking Poison. And, you know, there was all that kind of hair metal shit going on. And then you have, you know, mainstream pop and all that. And everybody's paying attention to all that kind of music. Well, underneath the sheets was fucking metal, you know? And we just felt like it was ours, you know? It was our little secret fucking club, and our secret music, and tape trading and all that was, you know, this was all before the internet. And so, you know, just really discovering bands from all over the world through photocopied fanzines. You know, they weren't even magazines. They were just, you know, literally people writing reviews about unknown bands from all over the world. And I mean, that's how Sepultura came to be. You know, they were massive in Brazil, but nobody knew who the hell they were in America. And And so there was a couple of guys, one being Bori Krin, who now runs blabbermouth.net, and Monty Connor, who now runs Nuclear Blast. Both of those guys, when they were in their 20s, were big time tape traders, and they, you know, they heard about Sepultura and brought them, you know, obviously brought in Scott Burns, and the rest is history. They're a legendary band, almost 40 years for their anniversary coming soon. So, and I was fortunate enough to be able to write a song on that Beneath the Remains record, that first American record that they did. I wrote lyrics for the song "Stronger Than Hate." So anyway, that was just a different time. You know what I mean, Jenna? It's like I was just a kid. You know, I mean, and just really trying to focus on learning how to play as good as I could, trying to fit in. We were a super weird band in a weird scene to begin with. So it was already a fringe kind of music, and then we were the fringe on the fringe. So, so you know, honestly, it was very frustrating until we came back in 2006, and finally the metal community embraced technical metal and embraced complexity and good musicianship in extreme metal. That's when I felt like I was at home. But through the late 80s and all through the 90s, it just felt like I felt like an uninvited house guest, you know?
Wow. Yeah, I guess I could see that it's that.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it was. I mean, we had really no one to tour with until Cynic came along. We had already put out Piece of Time when we met Cynic. And, you know, we just felt, you know, a kinship with them, you know, because they were coming with the same philosophy. You know, obviously a different band. They were more of a jazz inspired band with a flavor for metal. We were a metal flavored band with a flair for jazz. So we were in the same ballpark, you know, and it just felt really good to finally meet up with those guys. And but short of that, there was no one for us to tour with. There was no one for us to, you know, really do business with, so to speak. You know, because listeners were still very confused by technical metal back then. You know, everybody just wanted straight up fucking knuckle dragging heavy shit, you know, so that they can mosh to or headbang, and they didn't need any tricks or surprises. And so I mean, it was one of the reasons why we finally gave it up in '93. We're just like, fuck it, you know, and it was just beautiful to see in the early 2000s that finally this new generation had come around and the internet was a prominent thing, and so these kids discovered those records, and when we went to play Wacken in 2006, we were just fucking blown away by the amount of young 16 to 21-year-old kids that were at the meet and greets and talking about Piece of Time and Unquestionable Presence, and we were just like, holy shit, how did that happen? And you know, it's just technology. Owe it all to that. The you know, it being available for people, and you know, in the early days when Napster was a thing and people were able to kind of steal MP3s, you know, that kind of led to a lot of people discovering Atheist and a lot of new people, you know. So we have this really unique, Atheist has a very unique fan base because it's, you know, we made these 3 records over a short period of time, maybe 4 or 5 years, and then went away for 15, 16 years, came back, made a record. So there's like this multi-generational fan base that we have, you know, and every day, even today in 2023, people are discovering Atheist for the very first time and just and embracing it, you know, and it's really cool. It's sometimes good to be old, you know.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the album art for Outside the Spiral. Like, it's pretty cool. So how did that manifest and who did it? Because I haven't seen who exactly did it.
Yeah.
Was it you? Because I do know that you do art because I own 4 of your paintings, by the way.
What?
Yeah, you did those Pantera paintings for me.
Oh my God, Jen, I didn't even put that together. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. I didn't even realize that. That's holy shit. Yeah, the dime bag and oh my
Yeah,
God. That's
that's
amazing. What an
me.
honor. Wow, that's so cool. I'm sorry I didn't put 2 and 2 together on that. Well, thank you for getting those paintings, and I hope you like them.
Oh, I
Um,
love them so much.
but I would never, you know, when it comes to, and I don't know, everybody's always said that, Kelly, why don't you do the album cover? I'm like, no, you know, I don't know. Unless I had a piece of art that I've done that I'll be like, oh, this would be a great album cover, but I never have, you know. I'm not real confident with my painting as I am with music. I still feel like a pretender to the throne. You know, I mean, there's so many brilliant artists, painters and stuff like that. I just feel like it's, I'm just not confident. But
Did
I
you
love
look
painting.
at those Pantera paintings? How could, oh my God.
I mean, but you know what? That's it's so hard. I mean, being an artist is so there's a vulnerability there that that happens musically and through painting for me anyway, where and I think you'll find that with a lot of people that make art, just hugely insecure about it. You know what I mean? Because there's just so many great artists out there. I just think, fuck, how can I call myself a painter when there's people out there that really fucking paint? You know, Elleran Cantor is a fucking painter. You know, I mean, if you know who he is, um,
Yeah.
Elleran has done like all these these album covers in the last 10 years. He's amazing. He did Jupiter as well. So that guy, I look at him and I think, that's not fair for me to be at the same cocktail party with Elleran, Like yeah. So, it's a weird thing, but I can't believe it. What a small fucking world. That's amazing. But this particular album cover was done by Santiago Francisco Jaramillo, and he's from Ecuador, and he has a company called Triple Seis Design, and he had designed a couple shirts for us for tours, and just a really cool human being. And he presented me with this piece of art, and I was like, wow, that's he actually presented me with three choices, and this one was one that everybody in the band liked and all the people involved. And so we went with it. I'd love to tell you there's some big long backstory about it, but there really isn't. It really just came down to I didn't want to be literal, outside the spiral and put some fucking spiral on the album cover. You know what I mean? I wanted it to just be really kind of separate from the concept of the album, which isn't a concept, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
instead of trying to be like, oh, it's the clown story, and then we put a bunch of clowns on the cover. I just wanted it to be kind of different. So when I saw that, I was like, that's it. There we go. And that's the story.
Okay. Oh, so really cool album cover. I just pulled it up. I'm looking at it again right now. Like it, there's so much detail in it. It's insane.
So his explanation of, and he actually did a lot of the insert as well. There's a lot of that art is used on the insert of the album and the CD cover, the CD booklet. And so I just he there's a thing called and Justice for Art. Are you familiar with that? It's a series of
Wow.
books. It's a series of books about album covers, metal album covers, and it's called "And Justice for Art." And they just did a short story about this album cover where he explained exactly what the album cover meant to him, and he was creating it while he was listening to Atheist and a number of other bands, and so he had a pretty cool explanation for what it meant to him, what where he was coming from artistically on it, and it's on my Facebook page if somebody wants to check it out. It's on my wall. It just came out yesterday. And so yeah, you know, um, I like the idea that it just came from his vision as opposed to mine, because I wrote every single stitch of all this music, and I play guitar on this album. So I just felt like that's enough Kelly. That's enough. That's enough Kelly in this thing. Let's have somebody else's perspective for the album cover.
Okay. So speaking of like are also you are also the guitarist. Um, so what was that first riff that you wrote for this album, and like how did that come to you?
A couple of Jaeger bombs and some really good pot. And I'm being honest, yeah, a couple of Jaeger bombs and
Right.
a really good weed and a little bit of time to myself. And outside the spiral um, was the main riff of that song. Was the first, looking back on it, was the first song that I wrote for this whole series of songs that that followed. And yeah, it wasn't, it didn't feel complex. It felt like it had a lot of room and air, and there was a dissonance to it. When I record, I was able to record all the guitars. So a friend of mine set me up with a digital audio workshop, basically a small studio on my laptop, and I was able to get these really incredible guitar sounds from my friend Mark Lewis, who is a great producer for Shaefer Cowboy, tons of bands. He's great. And he had just created this. He was a part of this thing called STL Tone Hub, which is a hub for all producers. And what they do is they go in the studio and kind of model their sounds, all their favorite sounds from all the records that they've done. And they do it under, these amazing circumstances, compressed, uh, beautifully mic'd and done in incredible studios. And you can literally at your fingertips cruise through a Marshall, a Mesa Boogie, an Orange, a Vox, all these different amps that you could never ever afford. You'd have to have $150,000 to experiment with this many amps and this many sounds. And so I could literally plug my guitar in, sitting in my living room, and at my fingertips are 60 different guitar sounds that are amazing. And that in itself was really inspirational because, when you're recording at home or anywhere other than a really nice studio, it never fucking sounds good. I mean, it'll sound all right, but recording, you got to put a microphone on it, and you have to be in a particular kind of guitar booth to get a really good guitar sound, so it doesn't sound like it's far away. And there's just a lot of technical things that keep you from really making good home recordings until now. And for me, like again, being an older musician, I never experienced those plugins before, and there's those sounds being modeled. So I was in fucking guitar player heaven. I was just like, I can't believe that. Even after I wrote the riff, I could change the guitars. I could say, well, that sounds good in a Marshall, but what does it sound like with a Mesa? And anybody that plays guitar knows what I'm talking about. And also they would change the texture of the song, and that would give me an idea for the next part of the song. Like things like that were happening a lot. Just so I was just really mesmerized by the technology, and I became kind of like a musical junkie. Like I was so addicted to starting a new song every night. I would at 7 o'clock at night, my wife would go to work. And she was working at the time when COVID was happening. She was one of the frontline employees at a grocery store in our town. And so she was, stocking and working at night. And I was watching our 3-year-old. And so 3-year-old goes to sleep. I have a couple of drinks, and off we go into songwriting land. And I would finish the song usually about 3 in the morning, about the time that she was getting home. And I did all the vocals and all that shit all in the same day. So I would write the music, be done with the music about 11 o'clock. Then I would sit down and write the lyrics and then do the vocals. And then the vocals were usually done by like about 3 in the morning. Then I would go to sleep and wake up and listen to it and go, holy fuck, what is that? It's like, do you drink when you go out? Do you
Uh,
drink?
I I am 2.5 years sober.
Okay. Well, well, congratulations, first of all. But I guess I'm just trying to. Do you remember when you did drink, when you go out to a bar and you kind of get in a headspace and then you wake up the next day and you think, God, what did I say? I hope I
Yeah.
didn't say
Oh,
anything.
yeah.
So that's how it was
Exactly.
musically for me. Like I was like, I didn't remember a lot of it. You know what I mean? I was listening to it as if I was Imagine if you woke up after a night of drinking and you were able to watch your conversation from the night before. Well, that's what I was kind of doing musically. I was listening to my musical conversation while in a different headspace. 3 Jaeger bombs in and a couple of joints. So that just took me to a different place. And then waking up and not feeling that way, I could really listen to it from an outsider's perspective, and that was exciting and different. So I kind of used that process, cheap as it sounds and shallow as it sounds. That was my experiment for this particular album, because that never happened with Atheist. That's one of the huge differences between this Till the Dirt record and Atheist is I never drank and played that music or wrote that music. It was always about smoking pot and writing, and that's the only headspace that I was in for Atheist. But this created like this different anger and different courage that I didn't typically have when I was writing songs because of the alcohol. I think that's what I'm guessing, and it just made me do things I wouldn't normally do. Just like you do a couple shots of tequila and you say shit you wish you never said, or maybe you wish you would have said, or you wouldn't normally say because you didn't have the courage. You're able to talk to people differently. If you're single and you're able to go out and talk to somebody of the opposite sex, and you feel a little more courageous, and so it was kind of like that, and then it just translated to this record.
Wow, that's really cool. So it was like kind of like in a way like another part of you was writing the music, and then you would hear it as a different
100%.
part. That's so crazy.
I still hear it that way. That's why I said I'm having a hard time remembering the lyrics, because the phrasing and what I wrote is different than anything I've ever written. And all the vocal phrasing is so different from what I'm used to, and it's like meeting meeting a brother you didn't know you had 20 years later, you know, and you realize, wow, we have a lot of similarities, but you're different. You know what I mean? So it's somebody else was doing a podcast, and they said, you know, atheists just like, it's like atheists until the dirt are family members, like brothers, but atheist is like the nerdy, smart brother, and until the dirt is like the raucous party smash shit brother, you know.
And then
I was
what
like,
would
oh, I look at
Neurotica? Oh,
it.
and then what would
Well,
Neurotica be?
yeah. So Neurotica, I don't know. I think most people in underground metal don't know much about Neurotica. So it's funny. Like it's kind of this unknown world to most of the people that are familiar with me musically, which breaks my heart because I wish people would go. And maybe, you know, maybe Neurotica will have its day in the sun here because, you know, a lot of '90s music is really coming back, and people really want to hear that, you know, that vibe again. And so, you know, I would definitely like to see those records come back out again because they haven't been available for 15 years.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like I haven't been able to find them anywhere.
Do you have copies?
I did, and like over the years after moving so much, I have no idea what happened to them.
I don't either. I don't have a copy of either record, and I really want, you know, copies, but it'll probably happen this. I mean, you know, I'm definitely talking to some people about, you know, making those available again, and getting them back out there, at least in a streaming level, you know, because they're not even up streaming anywhere. And those are some really great records, and I'm super proud of them. I don't know where Neurotica would fit in. Neurotica is like the cousin. You know what I mean? As opposed to the brother, you know, the cousin you don't mind hanging out with, but is definitely different than you and your brother, you know. Neurotica was it was an experiment in above ground music as opposed to underground, you know. And that was a tough world to exist in. I don't like that side of the business, you know, trying to get on the radio, you know, making music for it really was gross the way they kind of, you know, well, it's just, you know, your label's not paying enough money to get you on the radio. It has nothing to do with how good you are, or you know what I mean. That's a little bit of it, but it's really just so political and so money orientated, and you have all these people that are sort of, you know, paying to get their band. That's why there's so much garbage music in mainstream pop and mainstream rock, and in my opinion anyway, just because it's a bunch of pencil pushers and check writers that are dictating what you get to hear, who programs rock radio. You know, you can listen to any rock radio station in the country and just be like, ugh, for fuck's sake. You know, it's just these boring songs that are just like, ugh, predictable. And, you know, and every now and then a good one will come along and break through. But for the most part, it's 75% garbage. And people eat it all up. You know, I mean, regular people that don't really care, they eat it up. And so, you know, that side of the business, I get it. I get why they do it, but I just don't want to be a part of it. I'd rather be a part of the people that get into a band and stay into the band until they die. You know, that's what's great about metal is you can get into a band in your 20s and never leave that band. You know, whereas mainstream pop music, people they're into a song for 4 weeks and then it's over. They never listen to that song again. They move on to another song. It's like it's not a passion. It's not a love. It's like this instant gratification. It's like if you know, if pop music is like a disposable lighter and metal is like a Zippo. You know, it's a stupid analogy, but
Quite a
anyway.
description. No, it's mind blowing to me that like they added to your music like for the WWF Forcible Entry album, and it makes me like wonder how much of music do like the artists actually do, and then somebody goes in and changes it, and the artist doesn't even know until it comes out. Like that's
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened with that song, and that in particular, that guy, his name is Jim Johnson, and fuck him, by the way, if he's listening, because he was just, you know, he was a friend of Vince McMahon's for 17 years, so he was there in the very beginning of the WWF, And so when we came in, like, the deal was signed and they brought in like the president from a former president from Columbia, and or, I'm sorry, Sony, and another guy from Columbia that had signed all these, these huge bands, and they had the right infrastructure in place. And then suddenly that guy came to the company was so big in 2002 that he didn't realize that they were actually starting a record company. And so when he did find out, he felt like he should have been the president. And this is a guy that had never been in a band, was never on stage or on tour. He was just this dork who Vince had created a studio for, and he was inviting like Cypress Hill and Limp Bizkit and Kid Rock and all these different people in to make music with him, and he was collecting 50% of the publishing or more in some cases. Vince McMahon, the company was so big he didn't realize that that was even happening until I came along and kind of blew the whistle on the guy. Because what happened is they announced to the world that Neurotica is the first band signed to SmackDown Records and blah blah blah. It was all over the world, and it was a big damn deal. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, like the record's done and it's all been mixed in at the Hit Factory in New York, and it's all just ready to go. And they were like, well, so we're getting rid of Ron McCarroll, who was the guy from Sony, who was just an incredible guy. He was the guy that signed us and should have been running the label. And they brought in this Jim Johnson guy to be, and then we were like, what the fuck? So I wrote a really nasty letter to Vince McMahon, essentially telling him, look, man, because they wanted us to come and make jingles. They were like, we're not going to put the record out yet. Once you come up and make some music with Jim, and let's see what happens. And we were like, what are you fucking talking about? You bought a rock and roll band, and that's what the fuck you got. And the record's ready, and we're ready to go. We're not jingle makers like that, And I had nothing to lose, man. I was just like, fuck it. I wrote him this letter that said, you're not going to ask wrestlers to train with karate people, and don't ask me to fucking go in with a jingle guy. You know what I mean? I'm a fucking rock singer. I'm a rock musician. You have a record, you have 10 hours of television, you have a huge, amazing business model that allows you to expose music to the world without without MTV, without radio. You don't need anybody, Vince. You have a unique business model. And he flew it. Like, I wrote that letter, and he wanted to see who this asshole was that wrote that letter. He flew us to Connecticut. And we sat in the boardroom with Stephanie, Vince, Linda, Shane, and a couple of their lawyer people in this huge boardroom. And Jim Johnson, this guy, Jim Johnson. And I effectively told him on the spot, I was like, this guy's never been in a band. He doesn't know shit about, being in a band or what it means to make a record. He makes jingles, and we don't want to do that. And Vince said, fucking, okay, let's do it. And that guy was very angry. And, he had a lot of clout at that company. He had been there 17 years. And the person who also, they used to have a show called Tough Enough.
Yeah.
Remember that show?
Yeah.
So the producer of that show was a guy named Kevin Dunn, and he was just like this little wormy 4.5 foot tall fucking douchebag. And Vince, once I got Vince on the same page, because I knew Vince was a self-made guy, and so I was like, you know what, you never let anybody tell you when you were coming up how shit needed to be. And you're asking me, I'm at this point, I don't know, 35, 36 years old. It's like, I've been doing this my whole life, man. Another thing that I explained to him was that they had taken Drowning Pool. Drowning Pool had that song Bodies at the time, and they put it on the air on one of their pay-per-views, and that band sold 250,000 copies the following week of that album. And I was like, how much money you got of that, Vince? None. I was like, why? You just made that band a lot of money, and that band's label a lot of money. You could be doing that yourself. You sign a roster of bands, and you use the music in pay-per-views, and you use the music on your television shows, and 10 hours of television, network television you have a week. That at the time they had so many different shows, and so he heard what I was putting down, man. He was like, let's fucking do it. And it was a gamble for me. I mean, believe me, my manager at the time was kicking me under the table like, oh, pull it back, dude. And I was like, fuck this, man. I'm not going to go in and make jingle. So anyway, that's what happened. And then we, when it came time to go on tour, they got us an agent, and the agent that they got us at the time represented all these massive pop stars, Britney Spears, NSYNC, all these massive stars. So we sit down in their big fancy office, and they were like, so yeah, we, congratulations on signing. And we thought we'd put you on the road with Fozzy. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. So what part of don't mix wrestling with what we do you not understand? Like, this is a separate entity. And I just felt like, they had already fucked up the XFL. by infusing all the wrestling people into the XFL. And that ended up being a $40 million failure. You know, that football league, that could have been an amazing football league, but the announcers were wrestling guys. And you know, I mean, there was just too much of that, you know. And so I felt like I didn't want that to happen with signing with SmackDown. I didn't want us to be the wrestling band, you know what I mean? So I was like, no. They were like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, fucking Ozfest. We need Ozfest. If we come out and we play on Ozfest, they were like, well, you know, that's a big deal, you know. And I said, yeah, this is a big deal. This is fucking Vince McMahon and the WWE. We need to come out swinging. We don't need to come trickling out. And again, I got lucky, and they were like, "Fuck it." And not only did we get that tour, but they ended up being a sponsor for the Ozfest that year. And so Sharon Osbourne waived our $75,000 fee to be on the tour. And so sometimes it's good to be the squeaky wheel. You know, you gotta, you know, for all the young musicians out there, when people tell you no, or try to steer you away, stand your fucking ground, man. Especially if you have a good, wealth of information about, how things play out. And so that worked out really, really good. And we had a great year, and we did that tour, and it was so fun and amazing. But it just became a scenario where they had, once they got rid of those guys from Sony and from Columbia, and they were stuck with this Jim Johnson guy, because they never brought those guys back. They had fired him and let him go, and they let this idiot run the label. And so finally, at the end of the tour, they were just like, so we're going to fold the label. This is too much. We don't know what we're doing. You know, you really have to have like infrastructure at a record company. You've got to be able to have radio people. You got to have publicity people, marketing. It's its own entity, and they just weren't good at it. They spent a lot of money on us, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, we played in Times Square at that time. They had the restaurant, in Times Square.
Wait, that's
The
amazing.
What's that?
Yeah, I remember that.
So they put our name up on the marquee in Times Square. It was amazing. It was a lot of fun. And we ran full page ads in all these major magazines, and it was cool, man. And it was cool to see them talk about it during television programs, and they would, the album cover would pop up on the bottom. And so it was just, for me, it was just this outsider experience, because I'm an underground kid, and so that was it was fun, but it was just a different journey, and I much prefer being in the underground. I love the people that are involved in underground music, and their passion that they have for it. It's just a different world.
Yeah, lots of mosh pits too.
Mhm. Oh yes.
Yeah,
Oh
wow, that is a trip. Wow. Crazy to listen to all that.
yeah. I didn't mean to get so long-winded about it, but it's there's a lot of stories, and the misunderstandings that people have about why things happen and why they don't. And yeah, someday I need to definitely write a book, because people will be blown away by some of the stories of how things come to be and how things don't come to be in the
Yeah,
music industry. It's a really difficult business to
yeah,
to
it can
to
be,
to stay in. It's
yeah, it can
hard.
be really fucked up too.
Oh my God, most of the time.
Right? Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone, but for those of us in it, it's like it's it's more of blood, sweat, tears, and love that goes into it.
Labor of love. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
labor of love. And even what you do, think about how underappreciated you are for the time that you put in to do these interviews. You know, you put in the time, you create the space, you do all your prep work, you put it all in there, and you know, you hope you can get, a number of people to listen or tune in or likes, how everything works these days. At the same time, like when I post something about a record, maybe I get 100 likes. If I post something political, all of a sudden 500 people want to argue with me. And it's like, well, why can't you 500 people engage in my music as opposed to my opinion on something politically? You know what I mean? I'm sure that you run into the same thing where you're trying to get people to listen to the show, and you see somebody can make a stupid video on TikTok and get 5 million views, and you think, God damn it, if I could just get 10% of those people to listen to my show, then I could be Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? Like you could have that kind of metal podcast, but it's just tough to engage people, to get people pulled in on things. So yeah, it's a labor of love, and I'm grateful to people like yourself who do this, because it enables guys like me to be able to tell the stories of the records and the music, and gives people a sort of behind the curtain look at how things are created. So thank you. Jenna.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's really interesting to listen to the stories, especially like as a fan and being like I was barely a teen when that album came out. So honestly, like WWE, that is like one of the reasons why I'm so into not the main reason, but like it did expose me to quite a few different bands. And now that you told me that he changed like, part of the song, I'm wondering how much of that entire the WWF Forcible Entry album, like I'm gonna have to go back and listen to like some of those songs side by side from the original to that version to see what changed.
Yeah, imagine if somebody came in after you did this show and we're done with our conversation. If somebody came in and clipped out 5 year questions and it was just me fucking talking, and then you'd be like, well, that's so out of context of, you know what I mean? It's maybe not a great analogy, but I mean, we wrote this song and the song was great as it was. Who asked you to remove an entire guitar track? There's only two guitar players, so you just robbed somebody of their entire performance on a song that you had nothing to do with. Nobody told you you could do that. And you put in keyboards, which is the fucking worst. Like why would you put in it was just, I've never liked keyboards in music, you know what I mean? And so on top of him doing that, taking it upon himself to do it, he stuck in my least favorite fucking instrument, my least favorite sound in a song that I wrote. Now I took it really personally. I didn't like, and it sold over 1 million copies. So,
Yeah.
that's what, and you probably think that that's the ride of your life. But if you go and listen to, if you get the album again, listen to it side by side, and you'll be like, wow, that is a huge difference. I mean, it really is. It's not just a little bit, it's a lot. And so it was heartbreaking, because while everybody was like, hey, man, you're unforceable entry. I'm like, yeah, well, not all of us. One of us got clipped, for fucking keyboards. So not cool, man. Not cool. But again, so publishing, when you write a song, publishing is a big deal. So if you bring in, this guy, Jim Johnson, he was writing songs with, big name artists, Kid Rock, Limp Bizkit. So if he could get them to come in and write a theme song with him, he could take 50% of that publishing. Vince McMahon didn't know anything about that money. And Vince was supplying the $3 million studio for this guy to work in, cost free for this guy. Plus, he was getting a huge salary working at the company and creating theme music. So all of those things, man, were really, I think I exposed him and to his old friend Vince McMahon, and that guy's no longer with the company. I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but he shortly after he was no longer involved. But I feel like he was embezzling tens of thousands of dollars. He had a secret game that Vince was so busy with TV and pay-per-views and all the different branches on the tree of the WWF, now the WWE, that he just didn't notice. Companies are that company is massive and $1 billion company. And so that guy was secretly making tens of thousands of dollars in publishing. He probably still makes that money because once you are signed on as a writer for a song, you forever get your residuals. So he robbed Vince and that company of a lot of money that really he had no business doing that. And so he almost tried to lure us in. And I was just kind of shocked that I was, among the first ones to kind of blow the whistle on the guy. But I did. I took a chance and I was just like, fuck this guy. And it was just funny that Vince knew him for that long and kind of said, yeah, fuck this guy. We'll put the record out. I love Vince McMahon. I mean, he doesn't say what you want to say about that guy, but he's a fucking real dude, man. Like he came in, there was no bullshit with him at all. Like he very intimidating, but very real. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like, just physically, he was intimidating looking. When he walked in the boardroom in his fucking suit, he looked like fucking Vinnie Mac. He was like, you could tell why that guy was a fucking CEO of a huge ass company. And yeah, so I have a lot of respect for Vince and the way he's ran his business, and he's done it for a long time. He's done it his fucking way, and you got to respect that.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy, like what all he has accomplished throughout his life.
Yeah, Linda too is just like the silent rock behind Vince, and she was
Stephanie as
really
well.
what's that?
Stephanie as well.
Yeah, Stephanie even more so now.
Yeah,
Stephanie's kind of in the early stages of, it was 21 years ago that happened. So she's really, a part of the fabric of everything there now, and Shane too,
yeah,
so, and that was in the early stages of Triple H and Shane, or and Stephanie getting together. I think they've been together for a while. I'm not sure if they're still together. I don't follow wrestling anymore, but I grew up on wrestling. I grew up on old school Gordon Soley and Florida wrestling with Dusty Rhodes and Harley Race and all these, the Sheik, the Iron Sheik, and all these old school wrestlers. I used to go to those events in my hometown, and so yeah, it's just interesting. You never know where you're going to land in life. I mean, when I was a little kid going to wrestling matches, I never imagined that I would end up in a room with Vince McMahon discussing my future. So really cool. It's been a fun life.
that's pretty awesome. Well, thank you so much for
My pleasure.
all of these insane stories. Like it's been like so cool to listen to.
Now it's a new chapter, August 25th, tomorrow. Actually, this is like Christmas Eve for me right now because tomorrow the record hits the streets. And this is my first record in 13 years. And I feel like literally a little kid who's excited to wake up and look under the tree. Tomorrow's the day. And plus, I made this record 3 years ago. I had to wait so long because of COVID. And, there was such a backlog at all the record companies. And I'm grateful to Nuclear Blast for believing in me. It's not every day that a label of that size believes in an artist of my age. And so I'm just really grateful that they took a shot on me in this record, and I'm hoping to make it pay off for them. And I hope everybody will go and buy the record, at least buy the damn thing and then stream it later. You know what I mean? But invest in music. I mean, please know that when you only stream a record, you're only making that guy at Spotify rich. You're not helping the band in any way. We get 0.013 cents per stream. So you got to stream millions and millions of streams in order to be able to take care of your family. But if you buy a CD, that's something that really really does help the band. And so I hope everybody will go and check it out. And it's a great package. It's a good record. Fucking buy it. Check it out tomorrow on Nuclear Blast. I hope everybody will check it out, and hopefully we'll hit the road in 2024. So it's a new era, a new frontier.
Fuck yeah.
Thank you, Jenna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelly. It's been a blast interviewing you.
Super grateful to you. Thank you for having me, and hopefully, we can talk again soon, and we can talk about hopefully the success of this album.
Yes,
And I can
yes.
tip my hat to you for being an early supporter. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, and you gotta put it in your memo to come to Fargo. Tell your booking agent or whoever does it, come to
Is
Fargo.
that where you are? You're in fucking Fargo?
Yep.
Fargo. You don't have that accent though.
Yeah, because I'm originally from Colorado.
Oh, okay. What part?
I grew up in Vail and then later on lived in Denver.
Ah, love Colorado. What?
Yeah.
What's so great about Fargo?
Actually it's a pretty cool town, a pretty cool small city.
But
It's
nobody goes there. Nobody goes there to play, do they?
we're getting more and more bands.
I want to
That's
go to Fargo.
yeah, we have an amazing death metal scene here with bands like Gorgatron and Maul. Like it's pretty crazy. Like when you go to the local shows, it's like, damn, we have this here. So it's
Ah,
pretty cool.
that's
And
cool.
yeah, we do get like some really cool bands that come here too. Like
Well,
we
what's
got
great about little towns like that, and all you A&R guys at labels, listen up, go to fucking Fargo because there probably is some incredible talent there that's undiscovered, and that happened with Slipknot. I mean, they were from a very unassuming place, um, that people wouldn't expect a band that ended up being that big would be from such a small town, So a lot of times it happens that way. Even Tampa, Florida, back in the day, Tampa wasn't a metropolis, but if you think about all the bands that came out of that scene. Obituary, Morbid Angel, Cynic, Atheist, Malevolent Creation, Monstrosity, like the list goes on, like Deicide, just all from one town. That's really cool, And so, yeah, maybe Fargo's the next sleeper town,
it may be we have like the amount of local bands we have here is quite extensive, that's for sure.
That's cool. Well, I will tell our agent next time to try to get us into. Is there a club, a venue?
Yeah, we have the aquarium, which is the only thing about the aquarium is that you have to go up 2 flights of stairs with your equipment.
Oh, that's a shitty load in right there, man. Oh.
But you know what? You guys come out here. I'm also a stagehand, so I'll help you out.
Thanks, Jenna. Yeah,
We
that's
also
funny.
have
It's one of those things on the road that you like when you wake up and your tour manager goes, "All right, everybody, wake up, load in," and so everybody on the tour has to wake up, crawl out of your bunk and go and load in, and so you always hope for no stairs, please no stairs, and it's like, oh man, so there's probably 3 of the 30 shows that we just did with Cynic had stairs, and so, that's a hellish load in, and then it's even
Oh
worse
yeah.
at the end of the night when you're all fucking hammered and you got to go down the stairs with all the gear. So yeah, we'll pull you in, Jenna. You'll help us load out.
All right. We also have Fargo Brewing and the Sanctuary too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Fargo and all the bands there, man. Keep fucking plugging away. Put your town on the map. Well, I hope to get to
Uh,
see you.
yeah. Yeah. And hopefully I'll come to Florida sometime and come to one of your shows too.
Yeah, just hit me up. I mean, I live in Sarasota, Florida, which is an amazing. It's much different than the rest of Florida, and it's this beautiful little beach town, Siesta Key. If you look up Siesta Key, Florida, it's one of the best beaches in the country. It's just gorgeous, and I've been here since I was a kid, and I just can't say enough about it. So if you ever want a really great vacation destination, come to Siesta Key, Florida. Look it up on Google, and it's just fucking stunningly beautiful. And this is where Atheist grew up, and now Till the Dirt. So if you ever visit Florida, hit me up. We'll go out to lunch and hang out.
Cool, will do. Well, thank you so
Okay.
much again, Kelly. This has been amazing.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for getting those paintings. I can't believe that. I'm gonna go look up those paintings again now, and 'cause I haven't looked at them in years. But thank you for doing that and always supporting my art. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. Like it's seriously amazing. So
All right, Jenna. Have a wonderful night, and everybody go pick up that record tomorrow. God damn it.
yes.
All
Okay.
right, bye, darling. Have a wonderful night.
Bye, you too.
Bye, Jenna.
Bye.